Hey, thanks for joining. Today we're talking about home energy audits. Hey everybody, Scott Townsend here from Simplifiu. Joining me today is Jake Keller from Hometown Inspections. Thanks for joining me, Jake.
Thanks for having me, Scott. I'm excited to be able to get here and get this done.
Yeah, so we're talking today about home energy audits. Um, you know, Basically everything home energy audits, with a financial slant, because that's where I'm coming from. But
Mhm.
before we get into that, Jake, tell me a little bit about yourself and hometown inspection services.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Jake Keller. I grew up in Hudson, New Hampshire, so I'm a local to Southern New Hampshire. I started hometown inspection services in June of 2022 this year. I've been working for other people in the energy efficiency industry for about the last 8 years, working in the industry, and went in with a plan. Knew that I loved helping the environment, being able to help the people in the local community as well save money and make their home more comfortable. And so I went in with a plan and decided to start my business, and chose energy audits and home inspections as really the two main focuses on how I can help people in their real estate transaction, right, making the biggest investment in their life. Also with the focus on, hey, this is how energy efficient your home is and or can be as well. So doing those two are really my main purposes on this business.
That's awesome. So we talked last week about how, I just did a video on how to save more on utilities, and I
Mhm.
mentioned in that home energy audits, and that's what we're getting into today.
Yeah.
So can you know tell me a little bit about home energy audits, like what, some of them you could get free, some are paid, like
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about that.
Definitely, definitely. And I'm sure later we'll talk more about the process of an energy audit. But to start off, yeah, there are no cost energy audits that work through the fuel assistance program. Basically, if you're receiving fuel assistance on your utility bills, and your energy bills, your oil bills, your gas bills, then you actually may qualify for a free energy audit and subsequent installation work at no cost. Those are all done. Most of the funding is done through the Department of Energy. It's government funding, so there's some more strict rules, and the process is a little bit different than what I normally deal with. But that is something that the state offers. Now, if you don't receive fuel assistance, right, there's different income guidelines. So if you're above that threshold, if you make more money than what they say qualifies, you can still get assistance through the program. It's just a different program. One thing that not a lot of people know, in New Hampshire, you pay to have your house insulated. You pay into the NH Saves program, whether you like it or not. It's something that you add into on your utility bill. It's kind of like this big bank full of money that everybody here throws money into, and then anybody who decides to have an energy audit, they pull from that bank. And there's a lot of cool things that it goes towards, but you do still have to qualify for that. There's only a certain amount of money that gets put into it every year. So, I wish that they could let every single person just dive in and make their house energy efficient every year. It'd be amazing for me and the community, but they can't. There's only a certain amount that we pay into, and so there's only a certain amount that can get taken out. And so you have to be at a certain fuel index. And a lot of people probably don't know what that means. Basically, means how much energy your home consumes. Right? What's your typical consumption over 2 years' time? And then from there, it's able to say if you qualify or not. And so we'll be able to share that link with you. It's very easy. Anybody in New Hampshire can check to see if they use enough fuel and qualify for an energy audit. And once you get in there, the energy audit only costs you $100. The program, it's a full $350 assessment, very in depth. But the program pays $250, so you pay $100 for the energy audit. And then from there, any installation recommendations that I find, usually 75% off. And that's not, hey, we're just doing discounts. That's the program paying for 75% of it. They cut me a check for 75, you cut me a check for 25, everything's good. So it's great incentives. They also have incentives on heating replacements, heat pumps, all that good stuff as well to just increase comfortability in the home, make it, more energy efficient and lower your utility bills.
That's awesome. So you and I were both in New Hampshire. If we kind of span out a little bit, some of our some people that are watching this video may not be in New Hampshire. How does this vary state to state?
Yeah, so there's every state, almost every state, 48 states in the country have a program like this. And these programs, they're not just created because the utilities like to spend money. They're created because the government forced them to. Ever since the oil crisis, these states had to start creating programs like this. And they're not all the same. They actually vary quite a bit. I can't say too much about what other states do. I know that the California program, they have some really odd, they lead energy efficiency for the country. They're constantly rated #1. I worked in the Massachusetts program for about 5 years. That program's definitely very similar to this. Their incentive levels are different. In Massachusetts right now, you can, if you change all of your heat in your home to heat pumps, you get $10,000 off the install there. The $10,000 rebate. It's pretty awesome. Again, New Hampshire has many different rebates that are similar to those, but haven't reached those heights yet. So that's really the best way to describe the programs there. Are how good are their incentives on insulation, HVAC, and really what can we do in the house? Because some programs, they won't allow you to do certain things to try and tighten it up. For instance, the Massachusetts program doesn't do much spray foam, that 2-part spray foam, that those videos you might see where they spray it on the walls and expands quite a bit. But the New Hampshire program does do that, and they heavily incentivize it as well. So just kind of different, some political parts play into it, and then also just the building science. What do they accept? What standards do they follow? That kind of thing.
I see. Okay, so home energy audits. Let's get into kind of the process around that and what are the main aspects of a home energy audit? What are you looking for? What are some of the common findings? That sort of thing.
Great question. Definitely great question. This is where I could really nerd out and explain it to you for an hour, but I'll give you the short of it. Basically, an energy audit is I go into your home and I figure out what your needs are, right? For different people, financials are different, their homes are built differently, they use their houses differently. So for different people, it pretty much always varies. But figuring out what can I do for you? What are your concerns? What are the biggest things that you wanted me to look at today? For some people, they might not know. They just know that, hey, this is a great offering. I take advantage of it. For other people, they're, already wrote it down, ready for me to look at. So figure that out with a nice introduction. And then I start with the health and safety aspect of everything. Really, before I talk about insulating your house and tightening it up, I want to make sure that it's operating safely, that everything that in the house that's burning a fire is doing so safely. So I start with a combustion safety test. I have a combustion analyzer that I use to test anything in the house that burns a fire, heating system, water heater, gas oven, gas dryer, that kind of thing, testing it all to make sure it's working safely. And then from there, I start assessing the thermal boundary of the house, which is basically everywhere the outside meets the inside. Is this space heated? Is it heated intentionally? Do I want it to stay heated? Are really the questions going through my head while I'm getting into every new space. And then assessing how well is it sealed? Is it insulated well? It gets pretty in depth. I'm looking at literally every space, tiny little crawl spaces with 12 inches of headspace. I'm crawling through there, really getting a good idea of how is the space operating and can it be improved at all. I use infrared cameras. I do blower door testing at the very end. That's probably my favorite part of it. That's why I save it to the very end. But I go around the entire house, make sure all windows are sealed up, put your house in wintertime conditions like as they are right now. And then I set up this thing in your door. It's a big fan, and I suck all the air out of the house. What that does is that forces outside air into your home. So then we can literally feel where all of the air leaks are coming from. You can put your hand on it, feel the drafts. And it also gives me a number in cubic feet per minute, how much air is leaving this house. So it reads how much air is passing through the fan, tells me how leaky the home is, right? And I have a good idea based off of other homes, based off of work that we've done in the past, how tight we can actually get your house. I can literally estimate how much money we can save you in the future with that one test. So it's pretty neat. I test all of the exhaust fans in the home. One big thing here is we want to make sure your house is tight, but it's well ventilated. Build it tight, ventilate it right. It's a motto that's in the building science industry. We want to make sure that we can get your house nice and tight, but you're not going to be at risk for any, increased moisture levels. Because what we do when we tighten your house up is there's less draftiness, less air exchanging in the home, which, as you'd imagine, if you got an aquarium in the house, a big pool right there, or, you're taking really long showers, that moisture's got nowhere to go. So we want to make sure that it's, vented properly. So testing exhaust fans, if they need to be upgraded, that's something that we could even help with, and the program offers incentives on as well. So, in the short of it, Scott, it's figure out the issues with the home, the defects in insulation, whatnot, and then create a plan to increase it.
Yeah.
You asked what the most common find, the most common defect, I would say, would be attic insulation, and attic air sealing. Basically, just the attic itself. Most people have heard that warm air rises in a home, right? So that is true. Warm air does rise. Warm air wants to go to the coldest air possible. Takes the path of least resistance. And so if you have warm air rising in your house, just think about what's above you, right? The attic space. So typically, I'm finding that attics have way too many holes in them, right? Way too many penetrations, top plates, all those things add up to typically an open window in your house. Just up in the attic, just letting air go up. So the lack of air sealing and then the lack of insulation. We have the oldest housing stock in America. I was just in a house built in 1757. As you'd imagine, yeah, there's pretty much no insulation, right? Back then, that's not what they were thinking of. They weren't thinking of, hey, we have to insulate our house. So just varying levels. I've seen houses with no insulation. I've seen houses, super insulated. So getting every house to that main level right now, R49, about 15 inches of insulation is what the program recommends, depending on what you got existing. That's really what I find is the most common issue. And then usually, if you seal that attic off and insulate it well enough, you have less drafts coming from other areas of the home because your house has a hat now. There's less air leaving, so there's less air that needs to come in.
How about in terms of like cost savings from improvements identified through that audit? What's kind of average long-term savings for homeowners that go through this?
That's a great question, Scott. Now, I'll throw a disclosure in there, is that I can never promise savings because obviously prices of fuel change, as well as how you live in your house changes, right? Like if you decide to not heat your house ever again afterwards, or if it's just a vacation home, can't promise savings, but there are very good savings that are involved with these if you use your house as you did before afterwards. So the program, I'll put it this way, the NH Saves program will not pay for a project. They won't even let you go through if it does not save them money. The reason the program does this is because they claim carbon credits. They claim all of the savings from the project on their taxes, and it's a write-off at that point. So that's why they do it. They make more than they spend, right? So in terms of the customer, right, the program's paying a big chunk, but you also get to reap the benefits of those savings, right? So it's very hard to give a full estimate on the exact savings just because it depends on what I'm recommending in your house. It might just be a small little project where we're just finishing sealing a crawl space and that's it, or it's this giant $30,000 spray foam project, right? Like each one is going to have different savings, and usually the more that you do, the more you're going to save. Same idea if I go to your house and I find, the crawl space needs work, the basement needs work, the walls need work, the attic needs work, and you only decide to do 2 of them because you have a budget that you got to work with. Totally fine. Just keep in mind you're not going to save as much as if you did the whole house, because now the entire house is nice and sealed. If you just did the walls and attic, it's still going to be cold in the basement crawl space. All right. So savings, very tough to predict. What I will say is that the most common payback that we find, so basically your savings to investment finally reaches a point where you have saved enough that you spent. The payback is typically 2 to 4 years of living in your home. So if you live in your home for 2 to 4 years, then you're going to get a quicker payback. I've seen some paybacks be less than a year. I've seen some paybacks be more than 5 years. Really, really all depends on the project you're doing. But the beauty of this is really no matter what, having me out of your house is going to save you money in the long run, right? It's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's a reason people want to do this. So, all right. So, what's the best time of year for someone to contact you to have an energy audit, or contact whoever?
Definitely. Yeah. So the program works on a yearly funding. It's doesn't roll over. Whatever they don't spend in the previous year, it goes away. And typically that's not a problem. Usually they run out of money before the year is over. So my best advice, if you're looking to have an energy audit, is don't put it off. If you wait until it starts getting cold, like right now, usually you're going to be, or maybe a couple of weeks ago, usually you're going to have to wait until the following funding year. Funding opens up January 1st of every year. So January 1st, January 2nd, that week's great to have it done. I find that most people, the busier season for me as an energy auditor is December. People tend to be very busy throughout the year, and they don't really think of insulation when it's warm out. That's really the best time to get it done, because before the winter time, you get to reap the benefit. And really, the other thing is, this isn't just a benefit in the winter. This is a huge benefit in the summer. If you live in a house where the second floor is always hotter than the first, that means you have a lack of insulation, like really lack of insulation or deficiency in your air barrier. That's not supposed to happen, by the way, your second floor being warmer than the first. So doing it in the summertime is also a benefit to AC costs, as well as comfort gains. But getting it done before the program runs out of money, so you don't have to be forced to wait, that's really my best recommendation. And really the best way to contact me, I'm sure we can throw it in here. But you got my cell number that we can put in, and then also jake@hometowninspectionsnh.com. If you're looking to get an energy audit done, that would really be the first step. I can send you over the link to see if you qualify, and then from there get you all set up and with the NH Saves program approval and get it scheduled. That process can take usually about a week or two from phone call to getting you audited. So really just best to know going into it what to be ready for. The utilities usually ask for 2 years of history. They don't need paper copies of your bills. Electric copies are fine. And if you heat with oil, you're not usually getting a monthly bill. So previous history of usage is good. Like, you'll get your fuel deliveries in a year's time. Not everybody keeps them, but your oil company will almost always have record of them, as long as they're a legit oil company. And then you could access them that way, send them over to us. The contractor that I do contract work for is one of the biggest in the NH Saves program. So usually we get pretty quick answers. But it's a state program. Sometimes it can take time for them to get back to us. But yeah, that's pretty much about it. Best time to get it done, and best way to get it started.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you to get that ball moving for
definitely.
For
yeah, it's a smart move. Hey, I've done my houses,
Well, Jake, this has been awesome. I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're active on social media. Can you give us some info on, I think it's Instagram that you're on?
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I'm probably more active on Instagram, using those reels now. My Instagram name is Jake_with_hometown. I post a ton of mostly educational videos that'll just get you thinking about your house as well. But yeah, I would love to be able to get more follows on there. You can start liking my stuff, and maybe one day become a potential client.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jake, and happy holidays to you.
Thank you as well, Scott. Thanks for having me.